Hello, welcome to the Lunch and Chat with Leslie broadcast. I'm your host, Leslie Parker. Thank you for tuning in to this live, informative, educational, and entertaining podcast that airs every Tuesday at 7 p.m. This innovative talk show was put together for you, the community, and anyone who wants to connect. I'm just so happy that you decided to stop by tonight. I have a very important segment that I'm going to cover. But I have been on a little hiatus. In case you haven't seen me in the last 2 weeks, I had the pleasure of attending my graduation at Grand Canyon University. That's located in Phoenix, Arizona, for my master's in healthcare informatics. Then later on, I traveled to Colorado Springs to visit a family friend, a very close family friend. And I'm going to tell you, they treated my family and I like queens and kings. So I had a very good time. I had a little rest and relaxation. But again, as I mentioned to you, I put tonight's broadcast together because it will contain some important facts about domestic violence, not just for women, but also for men. Women and men that have either personally experienced domestic violence for violence themselves, or they know someone who has. And therefore, I just felt like it was time to break the silence. If you see something, you should say something. Breaking the silence of domestic violence abuse is powerful, and it has a huge impact on the recovery and healing. So the Lunch and Chat with Leslie podcast will discuss some of those unique ways for victims to overcome it. I want to start off first just by sharing with you some statistics with domestic violence. And I'm going to start here in the state of Maryland first. I'll briefly go over some of the other states and also identify the country that has the highest domestic violent issues or abuse. But in the state of Maryland, there have been 702 victims of domestic violence that were served in Maryland each year. And the National Network to End Domestic Violence conducts a census for domestic violence service providers. So on September the 12th in 2019, Domestic Violence Program in Maryland, they had participated in the census. The Maryland courts had granted 22,000 temporary, I'm going to give you the exact number. It was 22,692 temporary protective orders and 10,102 final protective orders in the fiscal year of 2018. So you see why I decided to put this broadcast together. I felt like it was time to make people aware of domestic violence. We go on about our daily lives, doing what we do, going to our jobs, and maybe we don't have that in our household. But can you just imagine the number of women, men, and children that experience this every day? And I'm going to go over some things that talk about not just from the state, but why it became an issue and how it really became an issue during COVID. So that was based on the state of Maryland. But for the country, there is a country that has a highest rate of abuse, and that country is in India. It is at the top of the list for domestic violence. Domestic violence by state, I'm going to go over which one is the highest. Oklahoma had about 49.1% of women, 40% was women, and some of that were, the 9% were men that had experienced a domestic violence issue. In the state of Kentucky, also it was one of the highest domestic violence statistics in the United States. That had 45.3% of women and 35.5% of men that experienced domestic violence in a single day in 2019. Then in Missouri, that's the next one. I'm giving you the top 10. Missouri also was the third highest rate of people had experienced domestic violence, and that was about 41.8%. Nevada came next in line. It was 43.8% of women that experienced it. It was 32.8% of the women, and the rest were for the men. So it was about 48%, 30% of Nevada men also experienced intimate partner violence. Then the state of Arizona. Arizona had the fifth highest domestic violence rates in the United States, with about 42 42.6% of women and 33.4% of men. Now, the other ones are Washington, 42.6%, Idaho, 42.5%, and Missouri. So I guess you're wondering, why is domestic violence such a big issue? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to explain that to you. You see, domestic violence is a big issue because it has a huge impact on your health and your well-being. It has been known to cause anxiety, depression, effects on your social skills, and increasing likelihood can engage in other harmful things to your health, such as self-harm or substance abuse, unfortunately. And domestic violence became a problem back in the 1960s and the 1970s. Family violence was an issue, and believe it or not, it was due to the influence of the women's liberation movement during that time. So you see, as years progress, the domestic violence in American society just started to grow, and the attitude towards family violence began changing. So did the criminal justice system. There are three things that make up the cycle of violence. That's tension building phase, an acute or crisis phase, and then there's the calm or honeymoon phase. Now, before I ask you this question, I'm going to ask you, have you ever been abused? And if you have, it's nothing to be ashamed of, because that's something where you should talk about and you should discuss what abuse looked like for yourself. I'm going to personally just share some information with you about my experience with it. For me, seeing it when I was younger and as a child, I saw some of my relatives fight. And I thought it was normal. I didn't know, when you're a child, you're just told to, get out the way or whatever. But when you see it, you don't realize the long-term effect it will have on you down the road. So when I became a young adult and decided to get married, I did not realize that that would be one of the things that I would face ever in my life. And my domestic violence experience with my husband at the time, he was a very nice guy. I can't take that from him. But, unfortunately, when other things came into play, influences and stress and all these other things, which I'm going to go over that with you, what happened in COVID in 2020, how the domestic violence rate was really high. So all these things, I'm not making an excuse for him. But what I'm saying is, when I experienced it, I thought it was the norm because that's what I saw as a child. So therefore, it's so important that if you have children and you're a parent, you have to make sure that you don't introduce any kind of violence to your children, because it does have an effect on them deeply. They love their mother and their father, but when they see their parents fussing and arguing, or the father putting his hands on the mother, or vice versa, they will eventually transfer that into school in anger. But I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask you this question. Have you ever been abused? In a close relationship, it's difficult to know whether or not you're being abused, especially when it seems to be loving, you get the attention you want. And then all of a sudden, your partner's loving behavior starts to change. It may be, forced with sex or cruelty by talking to you, threatening you, or whatever. That's all kinds of abuse. And believe it or not, it happens. This is nothing that is that doesn't happen. But what I aim to do, and I hope to do, is to be an advocate for domestic violence and help other people. I feel like as adults, if we know of young people that have experienced the domestic violence, we need to put our foot down and make sure that they are aware of the circumstances and what they can do to get out of it. So I'm going to first share with you a video. There are two videos. One is with an adult and one is with the children, how it has an effect on them. And then what I'm going to do is later on, I'm going to go into kind of like the healing, the unique ways of healing. But I'm going to share this video with you. So if you don't mind giving me 1 second.
rest of my life, I don't want to be with anyone but you.
Do it
Until death do you part. I do. Well, maybe I wouldn't have to worry about other guys looking at you if you didn't dress like a whore.
I just don't know what I would do if you were with anyone but me.
Where you been?
You better tell him, you hear me?
I didn't want to do that. You just don't listen. Lieutenant?
Hey! You're okay. I'm fine.
Who's gonna take you with me? You'll never see your son again. How about next time? I'll make sure you never leave the house again. Here's this my lucky hand today. Look what I found in the bathroom sink.
Johnny!
Wow.
YWCA
It's
hotline.
crazy,
How
isn't
can I
it?
help you?
Crazy.
Every day, 24,000 women are abused by someone
Give
they
me
love.
1 second.
Just one phone call.
There. Oh my goodness. So I don't know if you really had a chance to really digest that video, but I hope you, you really soaked it in and took it all in. That's just how quick domestic violence can happen. They started off in a very loving relationship. That morning, everything was fine, and then it just spiraled. So that's the video with it's a husband and a wife, and he first told her, hey, I love you, and then it just changed. But I'm going to share with you another video, and this talks about the impact of domestic violence with children. So bear with me 1 second.
I've been married to this man for 22 years. Kicked me, broke ribs, dragged me across the house and knocked me to the floor. I can't even count how many times he did that. On and off through the years, he beat me. He slammed my head in trunks. He broke my finger. He was terribly abusive in front of my children. It didn't matter. At the time, I had other children by another marriage. I was divorced when he met me. And they were young. They were 6, 8, and 10. And the oldest one moved back out because the violence in the home was so bad. And my youngest son and my daughter stuck with me. But my youngest son would actually sleep outside my bedroom door. So if he heard anything going on, he could interfere or not. Or, he was only 6. So this went on for years. The abuse, mental abuse.
At the age of 19, I was in an abusive relationship, close to 3 years. You think it's all love? The calling, the texting, and then a drastic change. My daughter used to tell me how she was scared. She was ready to leave. She didn't want to stay. She began to wet the bed. She began to have nightmares. My daughter was able to see me hurting physically, mentally, emotionally. My daughter was able to see the bruises. She was even able to help me wipe up the blood. She was nervous. She was shaking. She wouldn't look with her head up. She wouldn't tell me how she felt anymore. If she was happy or she was sad, if she was mad, as if she didn't have a voice. But things got better. And it's all because of the Family Sunshine Center. They've helped me out tremendously. My daughter now is able to talk when she needs to. She walks with her head up. She's better.
Domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over the other partner. 1 in 15 children will be exposed to domestic violence each year. Children who are exposed to domestic violence may have increased anxiety, be more isolated, have trouble socializing with others, trouble sleeping, trouble in school, more irritable, inability to express emotions in an appropriate way. They may act out in anger as well because they're not sure how they're supposed to act. Children who witness domestic violence are 3 times more likely to engage in violent behavior than children who are not exposed to domestic violence. They are also more likely to be in a domestic violence relationship themselves, both as a perpetrator or the victim. Other long-term effects is it affects your health growing up. You're more prone to having serious health problems than a child who isn't exposed to that trauma. If you know a child has been exposed to domestic violence or you have concerns, talk to them, let them know that it's okay to talk about this stuff, that it doesn't have to be a secret. Get them help, get them a counselor, just be a supportive ear for them. And if there's any risk to their safety, to please call DHR. We don't know what's happening to the kids when they are at home, what that night looked like the day before. They may be sleeping in class because they were up all night from hearing their parents fighting. They may have been pulled out of bed themselves. They may be trying to protect their parent from the other parent during the abuse. So they may have bruises from that as well, or just really fearful, not able to concentrate when they're at school, worried about what happened at school or what's going to happen when they get home that day. So trouble concentrating, maybe not getting their homework done, not adequate sleep, maybe not food that night. Although domestic violence does have a large impact on children, they're also resilient. Children can heal from witnessing these traumas and experiencing these traumas. We use different coping skills. We use just talking to the children, letting them know that this doesn't have to be a secret. We can get them to a better place. If you're in need of immediate assistance, you can call the Alabama Crisis Line number, which is 800-650-6522. You can also go to FamilySunshine.org to receive further information.
Okay. Of course, that was from a different state, but the domestic violence is global. It's not just local. It covers the whole entire world. I had some statistics on women in Australia and other countries that have experienced this. You and I both, and anybody else that's on this podcast, I feel like you can make a difference. If you have personally experienced domestic violence, believe it or not, you could wind up being the biggest advocate for it, against it. And if you know someone personally, like any of your friends, that they're being abused or not treated well. This goes for also men. It's not just for women, because there are men that have been abused by women. It's so important that you speak out about it, because there's just too much crime. And I'm going to go over that, what the statistics are with the domestic violence. So if you notice in the video, there were young people talking about their experience, as well as, women and men, that were middle age. And the girl had mentioned about her daughter being, had so much anxiety. She started doing the bedwetting. She started having issue with school, struggling with her homework. But after she got the support that she needed, she got better. So you can heal from domestic violence. We can heal just about anyway. I believe that, once you ask for the help, or you seek the help that you need and go directly to the resources, you'll be able to heal. But I wanted to also just cover just a few more topics about domestic violence. And then I'm going to go and I'll go a little bit more detail about the effects with the children. And then I'm going to just talk to you about some of the unique ways of healing with when you've gone through trauma like that. So, many children that are exposed to the home are also become victims of the physical abuse. When they witness it themselves, believe it or not, they wind up having that same behavior once they become an adult. And I know parents, they don't think about it. They figure they're going to get their argument in, and maybe the man or whatever, they fly off the handle. But remember, your children are always watching you. And according to the National Institute of Justice, the research shows that disrupting violence is associated with positive outcomes for children that interventions to improve parent and child relationships can decrease the harmful effects and improve a child's development. They also, the NIJ researched that children exposed to violence informs the development of programs, practices, and policies to prevent the violence. And did you know, I just wanted to let you know that in the United States, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, that in the United States, there are more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually. 10 million, that's a lot. That's a huge number. So you see why it is so important to bring this domestic violence awareness to everyone. And each of the adults that experience only one incidence of the violence, an adult in the U.S. would experience violence every 3 seconds. Whew, that's crazy. And severe physical violence by an intimate partner during the lifetime as well has been known to be a huge effect. Now, 2018, there's a partner violence accounted for like 20% of the violent crimes. And it gets to the point where you say to yourself, well, when should I leave? Should I stay or should I leave? Most people that are in a relationship, and I'm going to tell you myself because I was in a domestic violence relationship. I did not want to leave. Love compelled me to stay. But at some point you have to make a conscientious decision for yourself and for your family. So deciding to leave a violent relationship, the Haven Shelter has some unique tips for you. So if you're out there and you know someone, you should share these tips with them. So here's some helpful tips. Decide a plan where you want to go, of course. If you have to leave home, think of where you need to go. There should be a safe place, of course. Determine who would be able to let you stay with them. I know for me, I asked my sister, would I be able to stay with her? So, even if you have to go to, I know people that have gone to a shelter. If you need help, get out. Go get your help that you need. Already have a packed bag ready, according to the Haven Shelter, and keep it in a secret place that's easy to reach. Open up an account, a savings account in your own name to start and establish or increase your independence. And keep the crisis line phone close by in case you need to contact them. Look for a safe computer at work, the library, the friend's house, wherever there's an internet. Use a code word or signal with family or friends when you need the police. I know that there's a symbol that's used if you need help, where you have your hand up like this and you have your thumb inside here and you fold it over. That kind of indicates that you need help. So if you can't speak in front of the abuser, then you let the person know if they ever come in that you need help immediately. And documents to bring with you. Make sure you bring, all your important documents like your bank accounts, deeds, or to a joint or individual property. I'm not going to go through all the documents, but make sure you go through all, bring those most important documents. So I want to go over just 5 things that you can do to be an advocate for domestic violence. Now, I know domestic violence awareness was in October, but domestic violence is every day. It's every day throughout the month, throughout the year. So that's why this awareness should be brought forth more often. Make sure you share the phone numbers, attend a candlelight visual, whatever you can do. And just don't judge. Maybe go out and listen. I can tell you right now, I used to work for a company that Maryland Medical Society, and they had someone come in and say, you want to sit in and talk about domestic violence. There was a domestic violence coalition, and they were just talking about just the things that women and men and children have experienced. So I sat in on it, and I didn't judge. I listened. Being a former domestic violence victim myself, I wanted to be get more education. So I want to also go over what the profession, believe it or not, that has the highest domestic violence rate. Unfortunately, they said police officers have the highest occupational rate for domestic violence. And also people that have been in the military, maybe because they have suffered post-traumatic stress syndrome and then they brought it home. to the family. But there is also another coalition. It's called 16 Days of Action Against Domestic Violence, and that runs from November the 25th through December the 9th. And in the 16 days, it's aimed to help businesses be more supportive and take action, because someone that's been abused, when they go to work, they try to hide it. But if the employers know something that doesn't seem right, they should try to take action themselves to get involved to see what they can do to aid their employee. So the history of that, it's been, oh my God, for a long time since they've had this coalition. It's been since 1991. But I want to go over the holidays, why there's such an increase in domestic violence during the holidays. So this is a perfect time to me to talk about this, because during the holidays, that's when it really happens a lot. Believe it or not, in COVID-19, it was horrible during that time because people were isolated. So can you imagine the victim living with their abuser? They couldn't get away from them because they could not get out. They had to stay inside because of COVID. Well, that was a bad year. 2020 was horrible. But the holiday season, it should be cheerful and it shouldn't hurt. But unfortunately for some victims, it does. And including there are 6 potential increases in domestic violence. And these are the reasons behind it. Stress. As I mentioned to you, that was because of COVID. What happened? The pandemic caused it. Also, people that were suffering from mental, physical distress will affect them, and emotional impacts of the pandemic that even heighten the domestic violence. Then it was also during a time when you have an increase in alcoholism and consumption and substance abuse. Studies reveal that that's a reason behind it as well. Financial stress. Now, COVID really had a huge impact where people couldn't work. They lost their jobs. So again, what did the abuser do? They take it out on their family members, unfortunately. So that was an issue, financial. Then the family tension, of course. I mean, bad enough, we have day-to-day tension by working a 9-to-5 job or other things that we have to do, but that's one of them. And isolation, of course, is one of the biggest ones. So I want to kind of talk to you about healing, though. Healing through the arts. And this healing, believe it or not, this weekend, November the 20th, from 1 to 4, my daughter and I, we have a sip and paint business. It's called Colorful Creations. We're located 6345 South Carroll Park Drive, and that's Suite C. And we're going to put together a domestic violence awareness event where we're going to offer healing through the arts. We'll have meditation. We'll have be a dance interpretation, like refreshments and so forth. But people will be able to paint as well. So the people that are coming to the event is not just the victims, but there are people that are coming to show their support for domestic violence. So I want to just kind of talk to you why arts is so important, that there's benefits and healing power through the arts. Because when you start creating the arts, it actually gives you a form of expressive therapy. And there's something called art therapy. Had I known that before, I would have been an art therapist. But there are people there to do art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, but healing, and they're all part of the arts. And this can include, as I mentioned to you, art, music, dance movement, drama, poetry, plays, or whatever. But creating art can also help you access a flow state where you are aware of the passage of time and the outside world fades away. This state has been described as being in the zone. And this is by Dana. She is a hotline advocate with healing through the arts. And I thought this was good to talk to you about it. So spending time in this flow state can be beneficial as it is known to reduce the negative effects and the repetitive or intrusive thoughts of unconscious association through that. While, survivors do find other forms of therapy, which is fine, but through the arts, if you notice when you paint or when you listen to music or when you dance, you're able to at least release that, dopamine. You know, it helps release that chemical that's in our brains that's related to the pleasure sense of it. So you don't have to stay in this state of depression and despair. You can also engage in certain kind of art. So I welcome anyone that's on the broadcast that would like to come to this event that we're having. Colorful Creations is having on November the 20th from 1 to 4. We're going to have some real nice things that you can go over and do. Nice activities, fun, give you a chance to engage with other people. But you will have to bring, if you do decide that you want to join, please, you can contact myself, Leslie Parker, or Kelly Brunson. You can contact us at our email, which is colorful creations with a K 4, the number 4U at Gmail. And tickets are $45. You can pay it via Cash App. And that's, and I'm going to make a copy of this so you'll know here that for tickets for this, if you're interested. And I'll just put it in the chat here. Let me put it in the chat. Okay. I will put it in here in just a second. Paste, there it is. Okay, so that shows pretty much where you would make your payment at. But I hope that you've enjoyed this segment. It is about bringing awareness. I just wanted to go over some of the things with you that will pretty much prick your heart, prick your soul, your mind, and know that, hey, domestic violence, it is a serious issue. And we need to get involved. I hope you get involved, because I'm going to get involved. I'm going to really become an advocate for domestic violence. Some things sometimes are so subtle. Maybe it's the way somebody could push you or shove you. Your partner could say something smart to you or put you down. And you may not think of that as domestic violence, but it is. It's emotional violence. It doesn't have to always be physical. It's psychological and emotional. And I really want people to be aware. Please be an advocate and reach out to the House of Ruth. They have, support there. If you want to be a volunteer, you can go there. Or there's another company called RAIN, and that stands for, I think it's for people that gets there against like violence and sexual assault and stuff like that. So please, I hope you do reach out. But I hope to see you this weekend. That is November the 11th. From 1 to 3, 6345 South Carroll Park Drive for Colorful Creations. You can look us up on the website. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you the website too, because it has it there on the website. So let me give you the website here and the link. So here is the website. All right, and I'll give you the link as well. Let me give you this link. Okay, and here's the link. There we go. So that's all the information I have for you this evening. We're going to be doing some more things, and that's on Saturday. So I hope you enjoyed watching the Lunch and Chat with Leslie show. I am so glad to be back. Again, like I said, I was on a hiatus. I had to go already have my master's degree and, get my education, whatever. But thank you. And I'll see you soon. I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.